wheels bending, broken rule. Hound dog howling, bullfrog croaking. Everything is broken.
Hello and welcome to another episode of DadsDivorce Live. I am your host, Dan Cuneo, and today we have with us Kristin Zurek from the law firm of Cordell & Cordell. We'll continue our discussion dealing with psychologists and counselors and what is the benefit, the risk, and the rewards. Kristin, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
Now, another thing that's on a lot of people's minds, when you're in the case, whether you have children or you just have your spouse and you have a psychologist or counselor involved, how are the fees paid for?
The fees for them coming to court to testify, or the fees for their weekly sessions?
Let's start with their fees for the sessions.
Okay, the fees for the weekly sessions, I would assume if you are seeking counseling for yourself, you're going to be paying the cost.
Correct.
If we're taking the kids to a counselor and mom has agreed to it, the cost should be split equally, and mom should pay for the sessions that she's taking the kids to, and you should pay for the sessions you're taking the kids to. If you have to bring the counselor to court and the counselor has to testify, say, on your behalf, you are likely going to pay that cost for the counselor to come to court, but you can always ask the court to perhaps apportion those fees as costs at the end of the case. Mm-hmm. If the opposing party is bringing a counselor to court, she's going to pay for that.
Now, you have a counselor or a psychologist, and let's say you go to a couple sessions and you don't like this person for whatever reason. Are you stuck with that particular psychologist or counselor?
No, absolutely not.
And what can you do to get out from underneath this person?
Ask for a different recommendation, find a new counselor, and if you don't feel comfortable, have your attorney send a letter to the counselor saying, my client wishes to cease contact with you. He's seeking services someplace else.
Now, what about when you have, because we have a lot of people that come in who both husband and wife are in counseling. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, there's a breakdown in communication and one of the parties decides to separate and file. That information that was discussed in the counseling between husband and wife, can that be brought out in court?
Again, it's all the notes and what's discussed in counseling is part of protected HIPAA information. Your client might sit there and tell you what was discussed in counseling. It's very, very hard to get it into evidence.
Can either the husband or the wife, since they were a party to that counseling, sign a HIPAA release and get the records?
Yes, they can.
And so there's always that risk that once you're in counseling, even though you're encouraged to be honest and forthright, that information could be used against you if either you or your spouse decides to get a copy of the records.
Right, and if you do find yourself in that situation, you can bet bottom dollar that the counselor is going to have to come into court to testify as to what's been discussed, because obviously if you guys are going to counseling together, you've had a breakdown. Wife signed the release, got the records, and now wants to paint some of the things you said in counseling against you. You're going to need to bring the counselor in to sort of temper your side of the story.
Right. And if that would happen, a good recommendation would be talk with your lawyer right away so your lawyer is not caught off guard.
Absolutely.
And then you can start being a little bit preemptive and proactive on how to handle certain situations that may or may not arise.
Absolutely, Dan. I agree with you 100%.
And then that kind of ties in with what you were saying earlier, that if you're not happy, you can go out and get another psychologist or counselor. And if you feel that there's that breakdown in communication, then I would recommend, once you talk to your attorney, discuss who can we get to try to combat this, because you're going to want somebody who's going to be able to testify on your behalf too. It's a sticky subject, and it's real hard for people to understand, especially when you're going through, because you want your marriage to work, you want your relationship to work. But what is your advice to people who want this to work, but yet at the same time they're tuning in and they're thinking, well, what I'm discussing or revealing in counseling could be used against me?
I would tell clients this: if you're listening to this and you're going to counseling and you're really trying to make it work, and if you feel like you're doing a majority of the work in counseling, if you're the one that's trying to change and you're the one that's doing everything to try to make it work, and there hasn't really been that same type of change on wife's side, well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's probably not going to work, and you might want to think about filing.
Now, if another issue that's kind of a hot topic that comes in dealing with counselors and psychologists, especially when you're in that joint session, can that particular counselor or psychologist represent the other spouse? Meaning, could they be an expert on their behalf?
They can, but if they do that, their expert qualifications are somewhat called into question, because at one point in time they were trying to help the both of you. Then counseling, for whatever reason, broke down. That counselor still continued with mom, and now I would assume would take mom's side of the coin in the situation. So the counselor would be there arguing mom's points, so her expert classification in the court and her neutrality on the case is sort of called into question.
So she's more biased,
You
which
got
would
it.
affect her credibility.
You got it. It knocks your credibility right out of the water.
Now, unfortunately, not everybody's got that money tree in the backyard to go and just continuously pick off, not just for attorney's fees, but also for counseling fees and psychologist fees.
Right.
What can somebody do if they don't have the income to support a counselor or a psychologist?
There are people out there that can help you. We can help you find someone. There are people that do charge $200 an hour. There are people that charge $40 an hour. You know, we can find someone to help you in your case. There are services out there. Your lawyer should be keyed in enough to the legal community and keyed in enough to the psychological community to know who can help you in your situation.
So there is hope.
There is absolute hope.
So just because you're not financially set, you still will be able to assist in trying to help your children or facilitate your case towards a counselor or a psychologist.
And I will tell you, I trust the $40 an hour counselor as much as I trust the $180 an hour counselor.
So you're just going to want to find out who is available, what their costs are, and what their experience is.
And absolutely, you look at your health insurance plan. Most health insurance plans, and clients don't know this, most health insurance plans do have some coverage for counseling. So if you have any questions, talk to your HR folks at work who offer you this plan. They should be able to explain this to you in more full detail.
Which I believe is called an EAP, Employee Assistance Program, where
Yeah.
they can look into. And you're allotted a certain amount of sessions that's covered under your plan, as Kristin said. But again, speak with your HR person to determine who you need to go to and what the set number of visits are. Because after that, 9 out of 10, you'll probably be responsible for the cost outside of the certain amount of visits you're able to get. But you don't want to focus on the $1,000 an hour psychologist and ignore the $50 an hour psychologist, because as Kristin pointed out, you're going to want to, one, speak with your lawyer on trial strategy and figure out who is going to be the best person to help present the evidence that your attorney is advocating on your behalf. But also you're going to want to sit down and look at the qualifications of the counselor and how do they best suit the needs of my case. What can this person do that will help my child or my children? Because the court's going to look at what is in the best interest of your children. And the best interest of your children is going to be what parent is going to allow the frequent, continuing, meaningful contact in the state of Missouri. And if you're in other states, the court's still going to look at what can we do to help facilitate a meaningful relationship with both mom and dad, as long as neither parent's going to harm that child or children.
I will tell you, it's been my experience in the court system. If I am the one coming to court and saying, I believe my children need help, we need to get them some counseling, you look like the bigger person. You look like the parent that's focusing more on the kid's needs instead of your own, and then it puts your wife in a box because it forces her to go along with your suggestion. And then again, you look like the leading parent, and you look like the parent that's really focusing on what's important in the situation instead of what might help you in your litigation.
And don't lose focus of that by concerning yourself with just the financial aspect. You don't want to go to court and argue, well, my children need help and this is what I want to do. And oh, by the way, I don't want to pay for it. I want mom to pay for it. Because then, again, you're going to lose credibility yourself, too. The best way to do that really would be to bring that up at a settlement conference, a status conference, a pre-trial, or even just wait until trial.
You got it, Dave.
Because you want to focus on the big picture when children are involved. And that big picture is going to be, what is the best interest of my child or children?
You got it, Dan.
Kristin, thank you for your time today and discussing with us the benefits of psychologists and counselors. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Dan Cuneo, and please check back in with us on another episode of DadsDivorce Live.
Broken pipe, broken tube. People bending, broken